Hey everybody, Pastor Dave here. Welcome to the Crossroads Lent 40-40 Challenge, where we're reading 40 chapters of the Bible in the 40 days of Lent. I'm glad you're joining me because we're in Exodus chapter 16 today. Today's day 9. Yesterday, we were actually in Exodus chapter 20. And if you're not familiar with the Bible, basically we have skipped over Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, and Joshua, quite a bit of the Bible to get us to this Judges chapter 16 section. And if you remember from yesterday in Exodus chapter 19, God had said to the people of Israel, if you would just obey me, if you would just follow my commands, if you would just allow me to be your only God and not worship other gods, I will bless you. You will be a holy nation. You will be my special people, and I will be your God. And yet, what we've been seeing over the last 5 chapters, or 5 books really, is the people of God being led by God into the land of milk and honey, and rather than thanking God and worshiping God more deeply, they actually become distracted by the things of this world, the things that other people groups are involved in. They begin to kind of worship other gods, idolatry, and they fall away from Yahweh. They fall away from God because they're falling in love with the things of this world. And that brings us to Judges chapter 16. Judges is a book where the word judges really means just leaders. So we're looking at the leaders of Israel. And they're in the land of the promised land that God had promised to give to them. And they're surrounded with a number of other nations. The Philistine nation is one of those. So this is the story of Samson and Delilah. Samson was a ruler of Israel, and Delilah was actually a Philistine woman. So let's jump in here. One day, Samson went to Gaza, where he saw a prostitute. He went in to spend the night with her. The people of Gaza were told, "Samson is here." So they surrounded the place, and they lay in wait for him all night at the city gate. They made no move during the night, saying, "At dawn, we'll kill him." But Samson lay there only until the middle of the night. Then he got up and he took hold of the doors of the city gate, together with the 2 posts, and he tore them loose, bar and all. He lifted them to his shoulders, and he carried them to the top of the hill that faces Hebron. Sometime later, he fell in love with a woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. The rulers of the Philistines went to her and said, "See if you can lure him into showing you the secret of his great strength, and how we can overpower him, so that we may tie him up and subdue him. Each one of us will give you 1,100 shekels of silver." I think that's 28 pounds. So Delilah said to Samson, "Tell me the secret of your great strength and how you can be tied up and subdued." Samson answered her, "If anyone ties me with 7 fresh thongs that have not been dried, I'll become as weak as any other man." Then the rulers of the Philistines brought her 7 fresh thongs that had not been dried, and she tied him with them. With men hidden in the room, she called to him, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you." But he snapped the thongs as easily as a piece of string snaps when it comes close to the flame. So the secret of his great strength was not discovered. Then Delilah said to Samson, "You have made a fool of me. You lied to me. Come now, tell me, how can you be tied?" And he said, "If anyone ties me securely with new rope that has never been used, I'll become as weak as any other man." So Delilah took new ropes and tied him with them. Then, with men hidden in the room, she called to him once again, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you." But he snapped the ropes off his arms as if they were threads. Delilah then said to Samson, "Until now you've been making a fool of me, and you've been lying to me. Tell me how you can be tied." He replied, "If you weave the 7 braids of my head into a fabric on the loom and tighten it with the pin, I'll become as weak as any other man." So, while he was sleeping, Delilah took the 7 braids of his head, wove them into a fabric, and tightened it with a pin. Again she called out to him, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you." And he awoke from his sleep, and he pulled up the pin and the loom and the fabric. Then she said to him, "How can you say, 'I love you,' when you won't confide in me? This is the 3rd time you've made a fool of me and haven't told me the secret of your great strength." With such nagging, she prodded him day after day, until he was tired to death. So he told her everything. "No razor has ever been used on my head," he said, "because I have been a Nazirite, set apart since birth for God. If my head were shaved, my strength would leave me, and I would become as weak as any other man." When Delilah saw that he had told her everything, she sent word to the rulers of the Philistines, "Come back once more. He has told me everything." So the rulers of the Philistines returned with the silver in their hands. Having put him to sleep in her lap, she called a man to shave off the 7 braids of his hair, and so began to subdue him, and his strength left him. Then she called, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you." He awoke from his sleep, and he thought, "I'll go out as before, and I'll shake myself free." But he did not know that the Lord had left him. Then the Philistines seized him, gouged out his eyes, and took him down to Gaza. Binding him with bronze shackles, they set him to grinding in the prisons. But the hair on his head began to grow after it had been shaved. Now the rulers of the Philistines assembled to offer a great sacrifice to Dagon, their god, and to celebrate, saying, "Our God has delivered Samson, our enemy, into our hands." When the people saw him, they praised their God, saying, "Our God has delivered our enemy into our hands, the one who laid waste on our land and multiplied our slain." While they were in high spirits, they shouted, "Bring out Samson to entertain us." So they called Samson out of the prison, and he performed for them. When they stood him among the pillars, Samson said to the servant who held his hand, "Put me where I can feel the pillars that support the temple. That way I may lean against them." Now the temple was crowded with men and women, and all the rulers of the Philistines were there. And on the roof there were about 3,000 men and women watching Samson perform. Then Samson prayed to the Lord, "O sovereign Lord, remember me. O God, please strengthen me just one more, and let me with one blow get revenge on the Philistines for my 2 eyes." Then Samson reached towards the 2 central pillars on which the temple stood. Bracing himself against them, his right hand on one and his left hand on the other, Samson said, "Let me die with the Philistines." Then he pushed with all his might, and down came the temple on the rulers and all the people in it. Thus he killed many more when he died than while he was alive. Then his brothers and his father, his whole family, went down to get him. They brought him back, and they buried him between Zorah and Eshtaol in the tomb of Manoah his father. He had led Israel for 20 years. You know, that's a pretty interesting story, the story of Samson and Delilah, and many of us are probably familiar with it, even from children's movies or a children's book or something like that. But, you know, the reality of Samson's story is kind of sad. And it sort of in a minute way, it tells the story of the people of Israel. Because Samson had been dedicated to God. He even says, "I got my strength because I'm a Nazirite. I was dedicated, set apart for God." And yet, Samson was in love with this world. He had a lust problem, frankly. He's sleeping with prostitutes, falling in love with these girlfriends of the Philistines outside of the nation of God. And we know that he was led astray by all the things of this world. He was a liar, and he was kind of playing with God, playing with godliness, just like the people of Israel. They were a chosen people, and yet they fell in love with the things of this world. They, I think, were just playing with God. And I wonder, even for us, how many times do you and I, in our Christian walk, do we just play with God? We might give God lip service and say, "Oh, I believe in God," or "I follow God," or "I'm a Christian," or "I want to be a Jesus follower." We can say those things with our lips, but what do our lives say? Are we the kind of people like Samson that have fallen in love with the things of this world, and we desire the things of this world more than we do falling in love with God? You know, it's pretty interesting because Galatians chapter 6, Paul is writing to the church, and he says, "Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever one sows, that he will also reap." You know, in playing with God, Samson reaped natural consequences of the game that he was playing. He was captured by the Philistines, and his eyes were put out, and he was taken down to prison and forced to grind grain in prison. And that was a natural consequence of his actions, of the way that he was just playing. Proverbs 26, 27, and 28 says, "Whoever digs a pit will fall into it. If someone rolls a stone, it will roll back on him. A lying tongue hates those it hurts, and a flattering mouth works ruins. Again, basically just showing us time and time again, there are consequences to our actions. So I would ask, in what way today are you giving God lip service? Like the people of Israel, like Samson. In what way are you saying, yes, God, I'm dedicated to you, and yet there's some secret sin that you keep in your life that you refuse to let go of because you've fallen in love with that, and you desire that thing more than you desire God? So, in what way are you giving lip service? And I would ask you today, rather than get yourself all the way down into the bad situation that Samson found himself in, rather than getting all that way, that deep into that sin, maybe it's time for you to admit that you fall in love with something of this world, to confess it to God, to ask for his forgiveness, and to repent, to turn away from that thing so that you might be healed. So my prayer for you today is that you'd be able to examine your life and say, in what way am I like the people of Israel? In what way am I like Samson? In doing so, you might be able to see something. The Spirit would reveal something to you that you might be able to repent of and seek forgiveness of, and in doing so, find rest for your souls.